We are now live. Let's get over to the YouTube and see if we can get our video up here. I'm at home. Let's see if my video pops up. We got to get this up so I can once we are live, it will show up and I'll be able to copy this over. I think we are doing good. We are live. Let's wait till we get a little refresh here. I want to see the live pop up. We'll share it with the Facebook peoples. Here it is. Let's get a shareable link. We're doing good. Now that we got that link, let's go ahead and copy this on over to our Facebook page for everybody. All right, now we can go ahead and get started on this. Let's see what we could come up with. Pop that up there so I can see these live questions and comments. We'll bring the controls on over. Place it on the trusty Octatrack. So we can't show this kind of stuff. All right. Now that we got that, let's hop on over to the YouTube over here so I can see some of these comments. All right, let's get into it. Me, my videos, live. Let's get this. We should be live. We should be here somewhere. Where is that live action happening? Okay. Me. Let's get into the studio. Maybe that's where we need to get to so we can try and get some of this. I just want to be able to see all the comments and everything from you guys. My content. Let's get going here live. View all. Why am I not getting my episode 5 here? Let's do it this way. I know. All right, let's see what we can do with this. Let's go. Mobile YouTube. All right, muted. This is what I want. All right. Let's do it in the app. Let's not. Let's see our comments. Let's get into the comments. Come on here. We are a little bit behind. All right. That's enough of that. Why are we not getting our... Why does this have to be so difficult? Here we are. Now it's popping up. Hopefully we're going to get a few people here. Live chat, we got one person in. How you doing? Thanks for joining. And we will just leave this open so we can see some of the chats. Anyway, we're going to get into this a little bit here. I wanted to talk about a few items that I have discovered in my playing around with this the past few weeks, a couple weeks between these live events, and I've been making some short tutorials for this. They'll be coming out shortly, just compiling a good collection of them before they go out. And I wanted to talk about a few things. First, I wanted to get into something that I just recently was talking with one of the Roland guys about, and figured out a way to, I didn't figure it out, it was kind of in there, but there's no step-by-step instructions. But what I did notice is when you go into your project, especially when you first start this, okay, in project 1, which is the first project you're starting in, majority of the sample slots are taken up, so you only have about 150 sample slots out of 500 left because it's filled with all this preset content they gave us, which is great because we want to be able to check it out and see what can be possible with this and see how they've done morphs and snapshots and everything they do with it. But when you're ready to start making your own patterns and kits, the best thing to do is to start with another project or project 2. Now, if you haven't, and you already started on project 1, like I did in the beginning, because we don't know better, and I'm here to kind of enlighten us all about this, is that you find yourself running out of sample space really quick. But if you've created some projects in here, you may, just a little weary about this thing right here. Let me scoot this back a little. Just getting a little too much pressure on that. Okay. You may have ran into the problem of running out of sample space, which I saw somebody have. So let's fix that. The first thing you want to do, press Menu, and then you're going to go over to Project, and then Enter. The first thing you'll see is Project and then the number, and it says Change. So if you hit Enter, it'll ask you what project number you want. Now there are 16 different projects, and they all have 128 pattern and 128 kit slots to occupy. But let's just say we'll go to number 1. Okay, I'll hit Enter. Load the project, sure. And loading this project will give us back project 1 with all those presets. Now, whether you have or you haven't made content on this first project, what I recommend doing is exporting the project. Okay, and there's ways to do it. You can export it and save it to internal memory, or you can export it and save it to your USB drive. Either one is okay. Both will work just fine. And you'll be able to pull from that project, just like a backup on the TR-800. So now that we're in project 1, we have all these presets and all these patterns I made. You want to go into Exit. Let's get out of here. We want to go to File. Okay, and this is in your menu. Make sure we're all the way out so you know where to start from. Press Menu, go over to File, press Enter, and then you want to export. When you hit Export, you get to choose one or multiple projects that you want to export. Simply hit Enter and it'll give you a little check mark, and you can scroll down to any one of the projects you want to export. Let's just say we're going to do 1. Then when you push the right arrow where it says Destination or Dest, you push right. It's going to ask you if you want to export it to the internal memory or to your USB that is on the back. Remember to format the USB drive before using it, and you format it on here in the menu. I've already done this, but you would choose External. And then when you go from there, it's going to ask you to name it. Okay, I'm going to stop here because we're not going to do the export process. It does take a little while. I only have roughly an hour today to do this, but I did want to get in a little bit of time and talk about a few things that I've been enjoying. So I'll back out of this, but once you hit Enter and after you've named it, it will start the process of exporting that entire project, all the patterns, all the kits, and the samples that come with it, okay, to what would be my USB drive. So I'll exit out of this and we'll assume I did that. Okay, once I've done that, I'll go back into my menu and go over to Project, Enter. I want to change, so the first thing where it's highlighted, it says Change. I want to hit Enter again, and then just choose number 2, or whatever number you want. I'll hit Enter, and I'll load Project 2. All other projects besides Project 1 are empty. There's no presets. All the kits are empty. They're just classic 808 kits, which they like to give. You know, that's Roland's MO. They want you to start working with something, and you get a little 808 909 blend here in this. So now that I'm on my new project, before I dive into it, I am going to want to make sure I'm checking all the parameters that I want to use. If my tempo source is going to be per pattern, and you can set a default project tempo, so every time you load anything up, it just defaults to a specific tempo. I'm always changing it, so it doesn't matter to me. You could choose how the tempo sync is going to behave in that project, and any kind of sync delays, fill-in triggers, how it's all going to be performed. I do like to put my start pattern and start kit to last. That way, when I start up the machine again, it loads up the last pattern and kit I was on in my last session. This allows me to get back into it, same with song. Then a few other basic parameters of how you like the machine to perform. While we're in this, there are a couple other things. You go to sound, and this is where if you're running 2 mono inputs into your external in, you're going to want to change this from stereo to mono, and then you'll be able to adjust the volume of each left and right channel coming in their own mono signals. And then the USB, you can bring audio in through USB, and this is the volume for it. Okay. And then your trig in, what it does, and all the parameters of that kind of stuff. The one last thing I want to talk about is pedal. A lot of people don't look or know about this yet, especially if you don't have one in front of you. You're not going to know too much about this, but if you've been exploring, you will see this pedal option come up. I myself have plugged in an expression pedal, okay, and it's just like a wah pedal. It pivots in the middle, and you get an expression pedal. And what you can do is decide what that pedal is going to do. I'm right now really fond of morph because then I don't need to move the slider. Moving the slider is fun, but what I'll notice is that moving this slider does take up a hand. Now, what if you're looking to maybe do a morph, but also turn something else, or mute something, or do a step loop, or you're trying to do something like that and you need a little more hands-on control? It's really nice to be able to use your foot to operate the morph. Okay, so it's a very nice feature. We'll dive more into that, and I do have a specific video on that feature in case you want to check it out. So let's get out of there. That's just all our menu project stuff. But now we are in a new project, which is completely blank, and you might have created stuff in project 1 that you'd like to port over to project 2. Now, to do this, it's a couple steps, but they've made it a little more simplified for you. If I go back into menu, okay, and we're going to go back over to File, Enter. Now, after we exported that whole project, we can now go to Import and hit Enter. It's going to ask from where. If you've imported or you exported to the internal memory, then that's where you're going to look. If you've exported the project to the USB, then you're going to look there. User sample is different. That is importing samples off the USB card. We're not doing that at the moment. We want to import patterns and kits from the other project that we have exported to the USB. So we choose USB external. Once we're here, it'll show you which projects you have exported. You'll see here project 1. I just hit my right arrow, and it asks me what I want to import from that project. Now I can import patterns with the kit, or if I wanted to just do individual stuff, just a pattern, just a kit, or just an instrument, that's fine. But I want to import my whole work, so I select that. When I choose the right arrow again, it's going to look into that project and give you again all these presets that were here in the first 4 banks. So if you wanted to bring any of those over to play with, that is a possibility. Then you see once we hit bank 5 and on, it's all of our own things. Now I had 4 patterns on 1, 2, 3, 4, bank 5. I've already imported those. I do have one on 510, so I will choose that one. I know it's not named, but there's one there. The cool thing is I could hit enter, and it gives me a check mark saying you want to import that one. I say yes, please, and then I can scroll down. I know I have one also on 6.1, I believe. So I'll hit enter on that one. Then right arrow Tells me to destination, where do I want to send these? Now I'm looking at my patterns, import pattern to where. My first 4 are the ones I've been working with. I will go to 110 because I had 510 just to keep things consistent with the way it was in the first project, but now I get to start with the first bank I have completely empty. So I can hit enter there, and then that 6-1, maybe I want to keep it on 2-1 and enter there. The reason I'm separating this into banks is each of my banks are a style of music that I'm trying to work with. So bank 1, I'm going to make all, house patterns or whatever. Bank 2 can be whatever else, breakbeats, hip hop, drum and bass, whatever else you decide to make. It kind of keeps a little organization. It's up to you how you'd like to do it. But those are my 2 I want to save to, because this helps me keep it consistent with how the last project was. Once it does that, it's going to ask me where I want to import my kits to. Okay. Again, I could choose whatever kits I want. I do like to keep it consistent, so I need to go to number 10 for that 510, enter. And then, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 would be A, 17 would be bank 2. Okay, does that make sense? The first 16 kits are going to be 1 for 1 with the first bank of patterns, 16 patterns. And then kit 17 will represent bank 2, pattern 1. Enter. Once I've done that, I hit right to execute. And it's going to say I'm going to replace data, but there's nothing really on there. They just want you to know that you could be replacing something. Okay. I do this, and it's going to import those 2 patterns and 2 kits for me right into my new project. Now I can exit out, and when I go to my pattern selecting, I can go down to, say, 110, which is a new, and you'll see there's a little asterisk saying this is new. It was blank and you've done something, but now you've made changes. So if I choose this one and I hit start, right, so I have a pattern. Same thing if I scroll down to bank 2-1, right, you got something like that. So now I have these in project 2, a fresh project void of any preset patterns or kits unless I bring them in myself. Okay, it's always good with those asterisks. You want to make sure you do any saving. So shift copy with an overwrite gives you a quick save of that pattern. Nice, no more asterisks, and we can go to 110, do the same. That's just if I wish to turn it off or something were to happen. I didn't save any of that. It revert to how it was. Now we're locked in. Okay, and now I can go to my patterns that I wish to use. Hopefully that made a little bit of sense for you guys of what was going on. I want you all to kind of follow that procedure, because then you will give yourself a nice big blank project to make all your own material and all your own content. And you don't have to worry about store or sample slots and all that because the presets took up so many. Okay, so that's one great way to really get started on that TR-1000. Now, we could pick a pattern here. Let's look into a couple things. If anyone has any questions or suggestions on what they'd like to see, it'd be great to hear what you got going. The latest one I was working on was this kind of glitchy house one. So if I go into this, you're hearing a bit of. So it hasn't been worked on. It's a very basic. It was just something to get started with. And I've been kind of going through and trying to refine everything in here. Okay. So it's all still pretty basic. It's just a modified kit that I brought in. I changed out some of the stuff. I did like a couple of the sounds they were using. So I kept those and I replaced the rest. And now we can look at sequencing some new stuff. I do like to kind of reiterate. We'll go over a few things with any of your steps. Let's see if we can find a place that's doing, I'm just kind of doing that. You'll notice these are all blue steps here that are lit up for the bass drum, right? That's because these blue steps represent the A layer. The B layer, which here is just a perk, FM perk, is just kind of something on the back. So if I wanted that also to be sequenced, that layer, B layer, to also be heard, I do need to just place the step right in here now. That's that perk, FM perk. Okay. If I wish to just do layer A, I hold layer A and I hit B, or hit the step. And you only will hear layer A. So if I turn the mix to B, of course you don't hear it because B is not sequenced. Changing instruments is quite easy. If you're doing a layer track, which is one of the first 4 tracks, make sure you choose A or B. We'll go to B since it's an FM perk model. We'll change it to something else. You know, the A layer is a 909. B we can make with a nice 808 backup if you wanted, or something else to kind of supplement the kick. Or another option is if you don't wish to layer that kick to create your own personal kick, then you might the MC707 doesn't have 16 layers per track necessarily. It does have on the drum tracks 16 samples, and you could layer them all onto one step if you wanted to. It does have 16 clips, but they can't play at the same time. It's one clip per track at a time. So that's a little bit different there. But on the drum tracks, you do get 16 sounds, but it is a groove box, and they are all sample-based. And that's about it. You can do all kinds of layering. It is a great machine. I use the 707 all the time. Not for drums, though, just because it's simply all sample-based, and I have enough sample-based kind of drums, unless I'm doing additional percussion. But you are right. It does have 16 samples on a drum track that you can, if you wanted to, layer all together to create a sound. That's absolutely possible. This is trying to focus more on strictly drums, so it's trying to refine everything down for you, because messing with all those 16 can be quite cumbersome, and you might not really get anywhere after, you know, an hour of trying to layer too much. But over here, the nice layer is you're trying to just create one instrument right out of it. And I do this on the 707. I generally use two, once or twice I've used 3 different sample pads, but I always do 2 for my kicks, and I always will layer my clap snares and a few other things. So while it is true, yes, it does have a lot of layers on that drum track. The tone tracks are simply only 4 layers. You only have 4 oscillators. And actually, on the 707, the drum tracks, each pad can have 4 layers. So you can do your drum designing and your kick on simply one pad without taking up multiple pads or samples. You could just layer it into one track. So yes, it does give you a lot more options. This is a little more concise with this. They want you to focus on really getting into the performance more than the depth of design. But yes, Digifx, you are right. It does have 16 layers on a drum track. Okay. So what I was going to mention, yeah, I love it too. I got videos on that you can put 4 samples and either go on the tone track. It's going to go in sequence. It's just going to rotate through them. On a drum track, you can actually get it to where it does a random, and it will do a random drum each time. The tone tracks will do cycling, and it takes a bit of work getting them into their own velocity zones and whatnot, right? Which you seem to be very well aware of. It's one of my favorite things too, is getting that multiple layers and having it cycle through, or even using the mod matrix. You can use one of your control knobs that are on the 707 to actually dial into which layer you want to play at a time. So you can isolate each layer with the turn of a knob. Or you can use the amp envelope for it to sweep through, or an LFO to sweep through the 4 layers. With the LFO or the envelopes, you almost create kind of a wave scanning. If you take the same waveform and tweak it a little bit on each layer, you could create a really nice wave scan sound. So, very cool stuff. And thanks for joining, Digifx. I appreciate you hopping in here and just joining along. So we can, so everyone else knows, they can see, I'll pop it up here. He's talking about the 707, can layer 4 samples, right, and rotate them one by one. It's actually very, very cool. So, great input. Now, with this, what's really nice that you couldn't do on a synth track of the 707 is each of these layers I could sequence in a different spot. So if I wanted to get the B layer into different parts, like maybe I wanted it to be just before the second and fourth kick, I could do that, and then I could kind of define my, your sound. Not necessarily the sound I would use for this, but I'm just showing you that, for example, you can layer or sequence each of those layers on one track, on one drum sound, to happen at different points. So either together, one at a time, which is really nice. And then each of the steps can be adjusted on their start point. So I can move this closer, move these closer on the start. So get a little closer. There. That's a little closer. Right. That's just the sound that's on there. We'll change that in a moment, but I'm just showing you the options we can get with sequencing. Now, it's hard to compare this to a groove box, because a groove box is trying to offer you almost all the things in one, synth, drums, sampler. This is trying to focus a lot on the drums with sampling, and I know it has some oscillators in here because they want you to have the option to create some melodic content, and especially with the sampler, you can easily drop any melodic content in here. But it seems everything's going to be kind of still a rhythmic-based melodic content, right? You're not getting free-flowing with a lot of sustains and pitch bends and portamentos and stuff like that. You're not going to get that kind of stuff in here because it's not a full-on synthesizer. So everything's going to be done in very step fashion, like a drum, and it's up to you to adjust decays and tunings and things like that. They did make this easier to make melodic content over the previous iteration, the TR-800. It's still the same kind of fashion with motion recording, but with snapshots you can kind of lay out all the notes you want and then play them in as needed using snapshots for each one. So let's get rid of these. We'll get back to the second layer here with something different. If you wanted to change that perk model, there's a couple ways to do it. Some people like to go right to instrument. I find this only gives you, it's only going to give you, let's see, if I go to bass drum, you can see you still got everything in there. So it looks like all the sounds are in there. So you can press instrument. You can press, if you're on that instrument already, just pressing enter in this screen where it's showing what instrument is down here on the bottom. You don't want to be in any, if you have a sample or a loop in there, if you're on that loop screen where it shows the waveform, hitting enter is going to give you a different menu. But this one, hitting enter, same thing. I get to select my generator, sound generator. Or simply hitting shift gen will do the same thing. Get to the same place. So if I wanted to put, say, just another kick on there, right? And let's just say we'll put the 808 ACB, the 8X. Okay, the first two, this 808 bass drum and 909 bass drum, are the two analog voices, 2 of the 4 that are in here, like the 4 analog voices we get. You'll notice that when I choose 909 bass drum, it says it's already on the A layer. You can't use the same analog voice in both layers of a track, and you can't use it on another track. So I can't come over to my, we'll just assume here, A, B, we got these two perks. We can't assume I want to go to perk A and then get into, oh, let's get into something else that's, find something that's, doesn't matter so much. Okay, so my strings I'm not too concerned with, so let's look at that. Go into our category bass drum, and when I go to that 909 again, it says no, the bass drum track is using that. So you can only use one of those analog voices in one instance in a kit because it's an actual instrument voice. Okay, it's not a digital creation of something where you can use multiple instances of it. It's already being taken up and occupied by this track for the analog voices. Okay, oh, I didn't want that one. So where we were in the strings before. I don't think it'll matter too much. I'm still just kind of playing with this anyway, so. Synth strings, I know it wasn't that, but we'll just keep it at that. There. So once you've used an analog voice, those 808s or 909s in the analog mode, you will be confined to using it on that one layer or one track. So I put the 808 ACB tone on here because I really do like the way it sounds. I can play it by holding B. That's it. If I just let go, and you'll hear both when I'm in display mode. If I hold A, you'll hear just A. That's A, B. So I can either sequence these, or as I'm kind of playing with that, I kind of want to hear them together anyway, because creating or designing your sound should be done a little more in the mix, so you hear how it sounds with everything else. That's the most important thing, not how it sounds by itself, really. Generally, they don't play on their own too much. So I could get it. If I want to get the tuning down or anything like that, I'll tune it down an octave and shorten the decay. Now these are just on some of the top level. There's the next one too that has the reformer, the excite to the excite's kind of how hard the transient will come through. But the reformer gives you these, I can't tell you exactly, I guess I could look in the parameter list now. It might give me a true definition of what the reformer is. But you have different types. We'll go all the way to the bottom so you can kind of hear what this does. And we'll keep the depth all the way, and we'll just bring in the mix of the reformer as you hear it. Okay, we'll do just the 808 by turning our mix knob all the way to B. So now here's the 808. Gives kind of like a wavefold or like a a nice saturation. But each type is a little different. Right. Very much like a pitch kind of bend. So you get some really nice. That exciter gets it really going. So if we use that for a reformer there, so we've gone from this to something a little grittier, a little more in there, right? So now when we bring back in our 909, you only hear A, right? Because we're only sequenced A. So let's go ahead and change that to all of them. And now with it playing, I can get in there and kind of mess with things too a bit more if I want to. Get back over to the... There you go. And if I wanted to dial in A a bit, I could do that. Soften the attack on it, or... Again, if you want more of a dead thud from that 909, Again, this 909 is the analog one. This is it. But you don't want it always to have the same amount of decay, otherwise it might just, you know, phase with the 808, so you want to be cautious with what you're doing. I do like the attack a bit more on this one. It's kind of my transient kick. Very dull thuddy and way up. And the tuning is, right, and bring back in B. Now they sound very muddy together, but what I can do is I could go over to B, swing all the way over here and switch my phasing. Also, the cool thing about these ACB ones that they have, the 8X, 9X, is they give you the different models that they're modeled after where the ACB drums were in. The original TR-08, the TR-8, just the TR-8, the drum machine before the TR-8S, the TR-08, which was the boutique one. The bass long is another one, right? So you get that long bass. They've added that in there. And then this is 08 long, so that's from the TR-08. This would be from the TR-8 and the TR-08. So you can get... See if we can hear the difference here. Probably won't hear much. Let me get it so you can hear some. It's very subtle. Seems like there's more of a click transient on the TR-8 from the TR-08. So you pick the one you like. Okay. Just a couple simple design ideas, right? Anyway, let's get past that. I'm sure you guys want more interesting things to look at or play with. This is just on one of the tracks. So let's shift. I always give overwrites. Every time I've made changes and I'm happy with them, I do like to overwrite so I can save, make sure that I'm getting everything how I want it, just like this. So I want to save it in case anything happens or I change or I turn it off and I forget to save. I know I'm caught up. Okay, so in this one we can start playing with a bit more here. This is just kind of how I was going from. I like to use a lot of my variations as almost sections of a song now, because I can now say I want a variation to play for a certain amount of time before going to the next one. When I use that song mode, it allows me to do that. Also, with cycling happening in the, let's change these because the kicks are all different now. I have all the kicks together. Actually, in A, let's just do just the 909. So it's not until I get into the next section of the song, right? So I got that. And then when I go into the next one, I can have some of that 808 in there. Now that 808's a little heavy. I don't know if I have it set here, but I could go into my B, just get a little less decay on that thing. Maybe not so low. If you get too much bottom end, you're really going to run into problems if you try to add a bass line or anything. You'll just have to rely too much on side chaining. It's up to you, but I try to keep things in their zones, stay in their lanes. So now I got that one. So kind of an intro kick, and then it beefs up on the next part. Yeah. So I'm not trying to get too crazy now. We're just starting. All right, this was the next one, and then it gets into... Now, sometimes you move through different sections, you might not hear something right away. And it's generally because something like this synth string here, it's on a cycle of 1 of 2. Which means it's only going to happen the first time through, second time through it doesn't, and then first time it does it again. So you can do kind of your... So you hear right here. You're not hearing very much here on that synth. We can kind of bring this up a little if we needed to in the volume, I'm sure. Oh, the attack's pretty far down. This is a Vox hit. I want B. Okay. So that synth string's not really holding, so I can hold it for longer. Now you can hear it kind of come through. Okay, so you're kind of hearing it a little there. If I go to my amp envelope for B, we can see that we can extend this. Now you're hearing a bit more of it. If I turn the hold mode off and you hear the whole thing, that's what you're hearing. That's the actual sample. Because now I'm holding the sample all the way open. Decay has nothing to do with it anymore. I can't adjust decay. I'm just playing the entirety of the sample. Okay, so you can hear that it's just the that's the blue ones, right? The layer A, the little vocal thing. But as soon as I turn this to, you hear it fades away. But I have this hold time based off my mode. Hold means it's always going to play. Time is going to give me millisecond time right above of how long I want to hold it. And also the decay amount in second, much like any envelope. And I can even do the attack. If it's a plucky sound, you can soften that up. But the hold is going to hold it at full volume for that time before the decay takes over. Now your max is 6 seconds of hold time. Sometimes loops will be longer than that. If that's the case, you just have to go to whole mode or go into your step mode, where now you can decide how many steps, all the way up to 127.9.5. So 127.5 steps. So just before the end, it will stop holding, and then you can use your decay for that last step to carry it through. So it's all up to how you need the sample to play through on how you would choose your hold mode. Okay. And fun things are, you can assign these knobs up here to be the hold mode, so you can adjust your hold time right here without getting into a menu. So it could be a performance thing. So sometimes it's playing, you could shorten the hold so it only sounds a little bit. Right? You would get just that. And then at other parts you could just crank it up, and then you have your whole sound. Okay. This is with your envelope. There's two places, I don't know if you noticed, on some of these that aren't actually loops. You'll get this other, I guess it's an envelope, but it just seems to be the generator envelope, because you have two. Because if I put this one on whole, it doesn't matter. I still have this one cutting it off. Same thing with this. If I put that on whole and I turn this one on, same thing. So I always recommend just doing one or the other. The two, unless you could find some creative ways, I think are just going to interfere with each other. So I generally leave this one at whole because I'm used to going to an amp for an amp envelope and adjusting that there. Okay, you have the switch on or off. If you turn it off, it'll play all the way. You're not holding or anything, just the envelope's not active, and it just plays as full. And then when you turn it on, the envelope takes effect. Okay. So nice little added features for a lot of different ways of using it, either through the initial one-shots if you want, or even with loops you can have it play and have a loop fade away early in your variations, and maybe later in the variation you can change the hold mode or the hold to be longer because the hold is now on a knob, and you can adjust these in motion recording per variation. Okay, so that's just what's going on with this synth string. That's why you couldn't hear too much, but now if we bring everything in, so that's all you're hearing there. This one just has a perk on it, it seems. You're hearing the tick tick. Oh. So this one A, we have two perks, and we seem to be playing them here. I always check the, there you go. So it's doing a little back and forth on this one. Can almost hardly even hear it. It's only on some parts. Seems to be mainly this one. Yep, this one's every one of two. These ones are all 1 1 1 1. So these are all regular steps. Playing that first, this part here. Now you might not be able to hear it. We just have to go through and look at a few things like our this is up, of course. We could turn hold mode off. We'll be able to hear it more, and our amp is off. You also have to make sure your filter can play a part in removing that sound, maybe. And shift filter is your LFOs. You got to make sure LFOs aren't targeted to be doing anything of the sort. Now, if I wanted this thing to play all the way through, you see it's just playing like a little section of it. It's on playthrough. I could turn loop off. It just kind of plays, triggering itself backwards and forwards a few times. I'm curious to see shift in this one. Yeah, direction is forward. So it just kind of bounces around in that little section there. Okay. One thing you can check on this is any kind of motion that might be happening here. You see on control there's a 0.8%, whatever the control is there. Here the control moves again. Controls nothing. 51%, 0. So it's actually whatever control 1 is, right? So we look on here, control 1. If you want to know what it's assigned to, you can press that knob assign and then just touch that knob. You'll see this is the rate of the generators. So it's telling the generator to go full speed or backwards or whatever it is. Okay, because it's changing the speed or the rate of each of the layers, Gen A, Gen B, each generator layer. Okay, so that's what's happening with this knob, is controlling that, and the motion recording is adjusting slow or faster backwards for that sample. Now we could just play it open and then just have these with no motion recording. Okay, you can, I think to clear that, let's see how we could do this. So this has none. This we could just turn off. Turn off. Turn off. There. This needs to be off. So now it's going to play all those. If I take these out of here, you'll see it. Want to play backwards. Let's go ahead and give this a cycle of 1 of 2. And curious why it is playing backwards. Oh, I know why. I bet you we just turn this. There we go. It was already set by default to go backwards. Okay. Filter doesn't matter. Our amps are off. We're on A level, so there's this. It was just the mix was over. So there's your loop. So instead of playing a little section or the whole thing, I had it set down to one little section. Okay. You could do just a little bit longer here. Let's look at maybe one other thing. Instead of this perk loop, let's try and load something else in there, okay? Let's hit enter. No, see, this is enter when this thing's showing. You got some different things happening here. We'll talk more about sample manipulation at another time, maybe focus really on that. Any other screen, when I hit enter, it'll take me to choosing a sample or something. But let's go ahead and shift, or not shift, but go to menu, file, import, user sample. Now, organization for your samples on the USB thumb drive is imperative because it'll help you get through your samples and recognize them quicker. I always recommend making sure that your sample, the name of it has, if it is a tempo-based sample like a loop, put the tempo in the name. And if it is a melodic or musical sample that has a key or anything like that, put the key that the sample is in the name. This allows you for transposing the sample to be proper with everything else in here, and the tempo allows you to get it to beat match or BPM sync with the rest of the pattern. So I can go down to sample, your right arrow gets you in there, So for navigation, again, I went through, it's good to label these: acapellas, bass drums, effects, strings, synths, everything else you want to possibly put in there. Let's say we got some drums, let's add like a fun drum loop maybe. We'll do loops. I like to keep them in certain tempo ranges. It helps narrow down. You can use any because it time stretches, but I tend to start within the range I was at because those loops are kind of made for the kind of music. So I could get in there. I have a bunch of various, or I have ones that weren't actually labeled with a BPM yet, so I just made a 125 folder knowing those are all 125. So we can start going through, and if you want to listen to them, you do just hit copy, but make sure your volume's down because the preview level is pretty high. I'm waiting for hopefully it'd be nice in a firmware update if we can get a volume control if it's in the pattern or the project setting. It should be a project setting where you can adjust the actual volume of samples, because this is way loud than everything else. Right, so this is the loop that's in there. So it seems like a 4-measure loop, and it says 123. Let's go ahead and bring this one in. And it asks the category. This was a perk loop, so we go way down, we can see there's loop, perk, and loop drum categories already. Okay, I created an SFX2 one because it has other different effects than what's here. So I'm going to say I want it in the percussion loop category. Then it will put it there in the category. It will not put it on my track yet. Okay, the only thing that does that is when you live sample in from an external input. So now I can either enter instrument or shift gen to get to the same place. Let's pick our category here, all the way down to that perk loop, loop perk. Okay, to make it even easier, instead of going through all of them, because there's a lot of built-in ones that have some percussion loops, which is a great gift. Thank you, Roland. I could go to user sample. This is the one I was using, that top 120, no it wasn't, this one, the 123 percussion. Generally it's the last one. When you import into a category, it'll be the last one in there because it's sample number. So once I have that, I can hit enter. Brings me here, I know BPM sync. I want it to sync because I want it to be at the same tempo as my pattern. So I BPM sync it. Stretching is more useful for anything that you're stretching too far, because then it'll keep it in the right tune. Right? It won't detune it, speeding it up or slowing it down. It puts it and keeps the pitch of it correct while the speed fluctuates. I have those. I'm going to hit right 2 times. One time you're going to see the waveform. Second, you're going to get to where it has BPM. I need to change that to 123 because that's what it is. And now, with this one, I'll take out this step. We'll just have our step here. That's already going to trigger it. If I hold the step, we know it's a 4 measure, so watch what happens if I just let it play. It repeats before it gets to the end. We want that last half. We hold the step and make it a 1 of 4. Now it'll play the loop through because it's a 4 measure or 4 bar loop. It'll continue playing and it won't re-trigger this step until after 4 times have gone around. Then the first time of every 4 times, it will trigger that loop, keeping it going and full with everything else. So now I got that additional percussive layer. Last thing, and then I do have to just jump off this for a moment. Maybe I could jump back on tonight for all those over on the European, Asian, Australian, all those guys on that side of the world, guys and girls. If you want to tune in tonight, I know it'll be more in the morning for you guys. It's probably pushing late night into the early morning for you right now. This is just kind of for anyone over in the U.S. side that wanted to jump in and say what's up or take a peek at what I was going to talk about. I'll jump on later on tonight for anyone else on the other side of the world so they can also get some time, and we'll go over a few more things. Again, these are all recorded so you can always go back through them, and I am making full tutorials on each of the functions to really break down each aspect of this so we can fully understand this machine. So with samples in this mode, there's a few things. You can immediately turn slice on or off, and it's going to give you 16 slices right away. This being a 4 measure loop, that would break it down into every kind of 1/8 note, right? It's not going to be a 1/4 note. Well, in 4 measures, yeah, it looks like it's breaking it down twice. So you get the downbeat and then you get the upbeat as well. So each slice would be a little different. If we go to play, inst play, and hit slice, it gives us our slices. So you get all 16 slices. That might work if you want it broken down into 16 equal parts. But say I just wanted 1/8. I wanted each of these beats to be a slice. Well, to do this, I just hit enter on this screen. And it says if you want to save it, you can save this if you've manipulated it into slices, or you've manipulated it into like shortening the start and end time, and you want that to be a specific instrument. Every time you load it again, it'll be already cut down and truncated for you. Right, fade in and out if you need to get a little, if it's too abrupt in and out and you want to kind of fade them in and out, that's what you do here. Zero snap, you want to keep that on because any slicing or adjusting of start and end points, you want it to be right on the zero crossing of the waveform so you avoid any clicks or pops. And then auto slice, this is what we want to look at. Hit enter and you go into the mode. Time division is basically how many beats or how many slices you want. Think of it that way. If you go by time division and I go 8, this is going to give me 8 slices for my loop. For my 4 bar, that'll give me every beat. Okay, and so we can try that. You could go all the way up to 16 or all the way down to 2. You don't do 1 slice, that's just the whole thing. So let's take a look at 8. Okay, there's other ways we could look. C1, we could go into level, and then this is kind of just the intensity of the level. It's going to look for variations in level to cause slices. And then transients. Transient can work too if you have something that's very percussive, and each percussion hit you want to be a slice. This would be a good way to go. But I want 8 specific slices, so I hit enter. Current slices I have will be lost, that's fine. Now I have 8 slices. So maybe I just wanted just this. You know, I could slice this. Now I could do this in a couple ways. As this is playing, you see it's going to pick this one every time because that's there. We're going to turn it off. Oop, no, inst play. Then we can kind of practice. I like this one. Right. So let's try that. We could go to inst record and just record it in. Now you can play those in and then come back to TR and you'll see that these are on the 1 and 3. I can hit the button here and it tells me what slice it is. Let's get out of this mode, but you'll see I hold the button, it says slice 1. I could change that to say slice 2 instead. And put this one, this was slice 6, so let's make that 1. What if we do another one here? Okay. We're going to just A layer that. And we'll A layer this one. But we're going to take this one so we'll make it that one. But what we'll do here is this one, 1 of 2, and this one 2 of 2. You see it gets cut off by this one. So since they're quarter beats, let's move this one over here then. Make this 2 and make it slice 3. So you can hear the kind of offbeat, right? Because this is on that upbeat, and it's kind of creating a different kind of polyrhythmic kind of feel to it, if you wish. And it's nice because I could use different slices on each of these trigger points simply by just holding the step and then choosing which slice, my 1 through 8. You'll see there's one that says like the 1 asterisk. I think that's like what the current one is, like by default. Make sure you place your A step if you want just that loop on A. Otherwise, I will get B to hit 2, which is a perk sound. Okay, and this 2 is also sliced up. So that would get... So instead of this, let's make it... So you're getting both of those. Both sounds. So just make this every time. So you're getting both of them. Anyway, I unfortunately have to go make lasagna for the family for dinner tonight. Everyone's very, very busy. I just wanted to pop on a little bit with you guys. Thanks. I know there's a few, up to about 10 of you that popped in just to check out what I was doing. I hope it was somewhat interesting for you. If not, they'll get more interesting. I just want to kind of go over a few things that I've been looking at. And my biggest thing was in the beginning, talking about starting a new project and how to import stuff from the other project, project 1, if you happen to be working on that already. How to export project 1 and then be able to import patterns and kits from that project into your new project. It's highly recommended, if you haven't heard in the beginning, to use a project blank. Start project 2 or further, and that should be what you work on. Leave project 1 as is, because it's full already. I know it's half full of patterns and kits, but the sample slots are full. So you might run into problems, and you don't want to have to do that and then do all this transfer later. If as soon as you get it, or if you just started, export that project. You could go right to the beginning of the video to see the steps, or I'll have that tutorial out this weekend of how to export a project and then go into your new project and import stuff from the other project that you exported. Okay. Thank you, Anti-Pewter. Not too short, not too long. Yeah, I think the hour long is kind of good. I like to do hour and a half. I feel if you start going any longer, it just becomes a run-on unless we really got some good conversations and stuff going. Otherwise, you guys are just sitting there and watching me silently try and create a beat. So I'm going to end this one. Let's see. Always shift over right. Shift copy every time. And then my most, one of my last things here. This one pattern I'm really working on. So I got some nice stuff going here. I will show you, I got morph on, and with this on, I'm using my pedal to affect morph. So I use my pedal down here, and it does the same as this. This is the morph, right? So that's my morph, but if I do the pedal, is, I think that's my bass line, right? Anyway, now I can do it again if I want to. And it gets into eventually. Hopefully that's not clipping you guys too much. So yeah. Latest thing I've been kind of playing around with, so that's getting developed. I love that this is all done on here. I played import stuff. I got to go to Yamaha CP, played that into here. I played the S1 into here, just capturing all these samples. So if you got it, sample into it, have fun with it. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments here, or always reach out to me in any way, you know how, Facebook, Instagram, all that kind of good social stuff. I'm happy to help and answer, because one of my points of getting this was to also help others to learn and understand a machine that they may or may not feel they spent too much money on it. I want them to feel they got their worth out of it because I feel this is absolutely worth it. And I always say pro level machines have pro level prices. Anyway, I'm going to stop on that. Thank you guys so much for joining in and hanging out with me. Hope you found it interesting. And again, the Anti-Pewter and Digifx, thanks for the comments. I will see you guys hopefully in about 8 hours, 7 hours, something like that. I'll try to do it again. If not, I'll be on quite a bit tomorrow. Till then, take care, guys. Thank you.